Today on
Doomed!
If there's ever been a more relevant name for a show, I mean, Doomed seems to be it right now, folks. I feel like we are in uncharted territory here. Folks, the country is basically locking down for coronavirus. Big events are being canceled left and right. People are being urged to stay indoors if they can. Try to limit what's going on, and that's where shows like this one come in with the live stream. Will be handy, I guess, for everyone who's looking for something to do while they're home. I don't have anything really witty or funny to say on a day like today, but I do have lots to talk about past this intro, and it will be fun because there'll be some, we'll make it fun because it's always fun. Let me pull them up on the screen when my guest comes on this show, and that guest is my buddy Jared Holt from Right Wing Watch. Jared, thank you for joining us today.
Hey, Matt, it's always a good time. Am I on the screen now?
You are on the screen now.
All right, I'll make sure to stop touching my face, and I wouldn't want the Surgeon General to see me doing that, you know?
Right. We don't want no handshakes either. I was about to handshake you, but we can't.
Oh, yeah.
I have to give you a handshake. Man, this is, what's just to lay it out. You're on the show to talk about CPAC and the Conservative Political Action Conference, and I believe this might be the. I don't. You've been on the show numerous times, but this might be either the second or third time you've come on the show specifically to talk about your CPAC experience.
I think it might be the second year for CPAC and maybe once before for something else.
Right. So you've definitely been on to talk about CPAC before. And I've been to CPAC before. I've not been there in a couple of years, but I believe I went in 2016 and 2017. That's the last time I went. But usually I tell people, if you're into politics, you should certainly go check out CPAC. Because
absolutely, it's a circus, man.
It is quite the event. I mean, you don't have to be a right winger, please. It is an experience. Let's put it that way.
Right. It is Mecca for like anyone interested in right-wing politics, either, someone from a perspective I come from or for the people that really believe in this stuff,
Right. Now, as an addendum to me usually recommending people going to CPAC, it sounds like skipping CPAC this year was a good idea.
I think it's safe to say so. I was going to come on here and we were going to talk about CPAC, but now, if you look at the headlines and sort of the news, you can't talk about CPAC without also talking about coronavirus because as it turns out, somebody who was at CPAC was later diagnosed with coronavirus. So I've been in a quarantine since Monday. I was about to get out, but now our office is doing telecommuting, so I am still quarantine gang, a quarantine crew, if you will. But yeah, now it's the Coronavirus Political Action Conference, unfortunately.
That's a good one. I was gonna go.
Yeah.
I was gonna go with COVID-19 goes to CPAC 2020 or something like that. But I guess Coronavirus Political Action Committee works even better.
I don't know, man. I've had a lot of time on my hands just to think up dumb shit like that.
I might have to make that the official title of the podcast episode. Now on YouTube, actually, I knew we were going to mention coronavirus, and we're going to talk about it a little bit more. I knew we were going to talk about coronavirus at CPAC, but on YouTube, I didn't want to write that in the title or anything, or in the description, because YouTube they've since reversed it somewhat. They've demonetized all videos about coronavirus starting last week. And then this week they announced, you know what, being that it's such a big part of the conversation now, we'll let you monetize that if you're a big news organization we partner with, or if you apply for specific monetization on that video. And maybe the system will catch it and I'll have to do that. But honestly, I don't want to deal with that. So I didn't write it in the description. But I'm sure they'll be scanning the audio and they'll hear it. Hey,
Oh,
YouTube
that's so
automated.
annoying. It's so annoying, man, because that really advantages smaller creators. It's just like,
Right,
yeah, that sucks, man.
right. But it's okay. It's okay. So, so how did this whole thing with coronavirus at CPAC, how did this play out? How did it come out? Because I know that when CPAC was going on, I was obviously paying attention to it and jumping into certain videos of the speeches and events that happened at CPAC. And it seemed like a big theme of this whenever coronavirus came up. And now they didn't know coronavirus was there when they were talking about it at the event. But the big theme of it was hardy har 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 ha ha ha. This is ridiculous. It's either overblown or a hoax.
Right, yeah, exactly. There I was in the CPAC main hall back in the press pit with all my friends from, Breitbart, the Daily Caller. Oh, all those guys love me. Just hanging out, CPAC, having a good time, listening to Mick Mulvaney tell me that, the coronavirus was just being used by Democrats to attack Trump. And, I was like, hey, maybe this thing isn't going to be so bad after all. I believe Donald Trump Jr. also said something about it. I don't remember exactly what he said, but I know it came up in sort of the same idea that, the coronavirus is not that big of a deal. It's being hyped up and weaponized to attack Trump. Heard it, didn't think about it. I was like, okay, whatever. Like, of course they're going to say that. And then a couple days later, I check my email and I've got an email that all the attendees got from CPAC. And I was thinking, okay, maybe they're going to like try to sell me like some health sharing insurance scam or whatever the fuck. And instead it's like, hey guys, just to let you know, someone there had coronavirus and we're in the process. And they've sent emails throughout the time since then. Apparently, they claim to have tested everyone at the resort/convention center where CPAC is held. That's kind of been contested since then. They're claiming that this person was never in the main hall, that sort of, trying to dampen these fears that other people might have been exposed to this. It came out today. Washington Examiner identified the person who had it as this wealthy New York doctor, OBGYN doctor, I guess, who had just bought like a backstage pass and was mingling with the politicians and the VIPs, which is why in the days since it's kind of come out that, you have people like Ted Cruz and Mark Meadows had been exposed to this individual who was infected, but seemingly none of the run-of-the-mill attendees had. So it's been sort of developing throughout the week, the news about it. And now I think it's hard even a week ago to think that this coronavirus stuff would be at the level that it is now,
Right. I feel like CPAC, if it was happening just a week later, it probably would have been canceled because all these big
Right.
events are just shutting down left and right. The NBA's postponed their season. Major League Soccer, Major League Baseball, NHL, the XFL has completely canceled the season, which I guess was an easier thing for Vince McMahon to go with than canceling WrestleMania, which, by the way, is still scheduled to happen. 70,000 people apparently all over the world are going to show up in Florida in 3 weeks. I don't think so, but
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see about that.
but they're not canceling it yet.
Yeah, I've got tickets to Kill Switch Engage on Saturday, and I'm just like, I'm kind of expecting that's not going to go through,
Right, right. I guess it really depends. I mean, because speaking of Vince McMahon, the weekly wrestling shows haven't been canceled yet, and those happen at arenas. I know on Friday, tomorrow, SmackDown was supposed to take place at an arena in Detroit, but instead they're moving it down to their small performance center, and they're just going to do the show there in Florida at their little performance center, which is not an arena. But I mean, I see all these things just not being canceled that seemingly should be canceled. I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, if things keep going the way they're going, and given the nature of a pandemic that is a virus, it's hard to imagine they won't keep going the way they're going, at least for a little while. It's hard for me to imagine, the excuses to keep it going are reducing and reducing and reducing. And eventually, I think we're just going to probably get to a point where pretty much everything is called off and we're just, what's the phrase I keep hearing? Social distancing, right?
Yes. I mean,
That is
what they
a
should do,
very, very colorful way to say like
keep away
shut
from
in.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
What they should just do is literally just everything should be paused for like a month. Like literally just pause life for a month. Like we should be, the government should give everyone money. The government should give everyone food. Everything should be paused for a month, and that way it'll just be done. It'll be done. We'll get rid of, like, just tell everyone they can stay home for a month. Cancel everything for a month, and that way we can just get this over with, and no one else will get sick. And people who are sick, they'll get through the bug, and in a month we could just restart everything back to normal.
Well, Matt, what you're describing sounds a little bit like
Socialism.
socialism. And I learned at CPAC, the main lesson of CPAC was that socialism is bad.
Let's talk
Not,
it.
not good.
Because when I went to CPAC the first time, the big theme there was the millennial generation. And then the next year I went, the big when I say the millennial generation, I mean how conservatives can reach out to millennials. Millennials are the future. How can we get them in? And this was 2016. Bernie Sanders is rising for the first time. People out of the blue, no one who isn't into politics knows who this guy is, and all of a sudden, he's got all these young people behind him who are becoming members of the Democratic Socialists of America. And so CPAC's big thing was the millennial generation. How can we get them to be conservatives? And then like a year later, it becomes pretty clear that they want to focus on the socialism aspect of that specifically. And how, no,
Right.
young people are really into socialism. And now from what it sounds like to you, from what you just said, this still is the big thing at CPAC. This is what they're harping on. This is the big theme. Socialism is bad.
Right. And especially, I've gone to CPAC for, I think, 3 years in person. I've covered it for about 4 years. But last year when I was there, very explicitly early on in the conference, they, just straight up said, like, we have to deal with socialism. We have to, like, our strategy of attack is going to be calling the Democrats socialist and attacking socialism. Because they seem to have it in their head that socialism, like, eventually, at some point in electoral politics, is going to be where Democratic Party-based voters get to. And they see Sanders as like indicative of that, this growing support, this younger generation that is down with Bernie Sanders, down with sort of rethinking the way that, whether it's the financial system or the political system, how it relates to that, be restructured. That threatens them. So they are trying to hit that surface.
It's perfect.
Early.
It's perfect you said that because if any of those people out there in the Democratic base who sees those Trump tweets where he's constantly tweeting about Bernie Sanders and thinks that Trump is doing that tweeting sort of positively, it looks like, about Bernie Sanders because he wants to face Bernie Sanders. I mean, I suggest if you're one of those people, go to CPAC and you'll quickly understand that that's not the case.
Right. Even Charlie Kirk, of all people, well, I'm sure if your show's like mine, made fun of Charlie Kirk plenty. But Charlie Kirk said something, and this was a really illuminating moment for me while I was there. Charlie Kirk just got like dead serious one morning and on the stage was like, we can't just tell people that socialism sucks. Like we cannot underestimate how potent this is with young people and like how close we actually are to seeing something like that. Now, of course, when they say socialist, and I think to the fault of even a lot of American socialists, it will describe themselves using that term, and what they really are on like a global perspective is a social democrat, or like from a policy perspective, they're a social democrat. Um, but they use that kind of interchangeably. They think that social democrat type push for things like Medicare for all, for raising the minimum wage, guaranteed sick leave, that sort of thing, like that is an affront to them and their interest. And if I think they realize even more than some like MSNBC pundits that people want this and people need this and people are struggling. And, if they don't do something dramatic quickly, they are going to be on the losing side of that argument.
That is really interesting because, I mean, you know, a lot of the when I say smart people in the conservative movement, I do mean someone like, a Charlie Kirk. I don't think he's like, smart in the sense that I would call, someone smart if they were very intelligent. I mean, he's smart in so much that he sees what's going on and he's accurately putting it all together.
Of
Like you
course, yeah,
said,
yeah.
it's the fact that you compared it to, he gets it better than an MSNBC pundit, and it's the truth, because once you really, he's a young guy, Charlie Kirk. He
Yeah.
sees the people around him. He runs a conservative youth movement. I mean, whether you want to, it's sort of like an AstroTurf movement, but it's
Right,
still,
right. It's an old person's idea of what a young person's movement is,
right, right.
but yeah,
But obviously he's a young guy, and if you go to CPAC, you do see that there's usually a handful, about a dozen or so of other young people, college students, who are usually with Turning Point USA with like the Socialism Sucks shirts, and like obviously those kids go to school and they have friends and they see what's going on. Like, I think you just really need to, like, I've mentioned this throughout these past few weeks with the Democratic primaries. I mean, all these cable news stations, they have on someone with the Trump perspective. They have on someone with the Biden perspective. They even had people on with like every other primary candidate perspective, except for Bernie Sanders, really, because who are the people who are on these panels? They're usually 40 plus. They usually have some sort of background that puts them on TV like that. And Bernie Sanders' base are young. And for some reason, I mean, they're not getting young people to go on these panels. I mean, recently, they got Alexandra Rojas from Justice Democrats, who's young, as a CNN panelist. And MSNBC, I think, or is it? No, the CNN also got Abdul from who ran for governor of Michigan, also with Justice Democrats, as a panelist. But MSNBC has completely not done anything to get any sort of young people on to understand what's going on with the people who support Sanders, and I think it's a big it leads to this big misunderstanding. And hell, they're letting someone like Charlie Kirk get it better than they are, which is that's a shame. That's like sad on their part.
right. And I think it ends up creating the type of thing that the election of Donald Trump did too, which is you have this kind of cable news, I don't know what like a media class, if you will. Like there's like as much as broadcast news is a class of people, there's class interest there. And for the longest time, they, and this isn't a perfect comparison, but there was a period in time where they were like, we're not going to bring on Trump supporters. This guy's a sideshow. It's whatever. Eventually, they did bring them on. And I think if Sanders continues, hopefully they'll bring voices that support Sanders on. But I think what that hesitancy and sort of that intentional distancing did, excuse me, in the beginning was kind of contribute to this almost like dual reality that we find ourselves in now, right? Where you have Trump and his movement believing the things they believe, and the rest of us, it just seems so absolutely outlandish that we can't even try to understand why people believe that sometimes.
But I completely agree with you. But at least when they have the Trump people on, we know there's at least about 60 million people who voted for Donald Trump, who these Trump supporters they have on these shows are speaking to or representing, and that's you can say it's not good they're on, you can say it's good that they're on, so we can understand what these people are thinking or whatever. There's obviously I don't think both arguments have good points,
Right.
but on the other side, who are the voices who these cable news channels usually get to be the anti-Trump perspective? It's not the left.
It's Republicans, man. It's Bill Kristol.
Exactly. It's not even mainstream Democrats a lot of the time. It's these never Trump Republicans who do not represent anyone. There's literally it's probably I don't even know how many people they are, but they're not the 60 million Trump voters. They're not the 65 million Hillary voters. They're not even in the millions, I can tell you. We're talking at most 6 figures worth of people, literally, across the whole country.
Right. All you have to do is look at the candidacy of Joe Walsh. Joe Walsh is this right-wing commentator, radio guy who was super pro-Trump, and then in the years after the election became anti-Trump. Then he announced that he was running for president, went on MSNBC, CNN, all the networks talking about how he was running for president, he was going to primary Donald Trump and finally bring order back to the party. And he just bombed. And I mean, it was almost like he was never there to begin with. And that should just show you. I mean, this dude didn't even clear 1%. There is not a faction of the Republican Party that these people actually speak to.
Right.
And going to CPAC to tie it all back in, it's easy to kind of get your perception of what politics is when you are just scrolling through a phone or clicking around on the internet. But until you're really in a physical space with people and interacting with them and having conversations with them, you don't really fully know. And going to CPAC and talking to people and walking around and, hearing what everyone had to say, this is essentially just like Trump is the tent now. There's not the small government tent. It's just the Trump tent, and then everyone else is trying to find their place in it.
Right. And the funny thing about the Joe Walsh example is that he's actually one of those rare never Trump guys. He's got a horrible background. If you look into this guy, he's not a good guy. But he was one of the rare never Trump guys who actually meant never Trump, at least when he said never Trump. But we won't ever know this because it looks like this is not going to be the way it goes. But this is a guy who said it openly on Twitter that, I'm being serious when I mean never Trump. I'll even go out and campaign for Bernie Sanders and vote for him if he's the nominee. The majority of even never Trump people don't believe that, because even they are out there saying, we'll vote for anyone to get rid of Trump because we're never Trump. Oh, except Bernie Sanders. If Bernie Sanders is the nominee, then we're all of a sudden we're not never Trump anymore.
Right. I mean, most of these people are going to look at how their taxes are going to change and are going to pull the lever for Trump anyway. So I don't even understand why these people are on TV all the time. And well, I won't say too much, but there's a lot of people on TV that I don't know why they're on TV, but we'll leave it there.
Right. What needs to happen, Jared, is MSNBC, CNN, hell, even Fox News. I got no problem going on Fox. Needs to have people like you and me on. It's that simple.
Yeah. Why not? I mean, I'll just like drop an F-bomb in the middle of Fox News and let them pick up the FTC fine or whatever. Or
I think there's
FCC.
I do think, and I know there's people who disagree with me, and I know this is a whole debate on between progressives and the left, but I do think there is an actual benefit to going on Fox News. And I've explained it as this, if you are going on Fox to just bash Democrats, then that's pretty dumb. But if you're going on Fox and you are going to use that time to actually give the Fox News audience something that they wouldn't get otherwise, I should say, then I think there's a net benefit there. Like when Bernie Sanders has a town hall on Fox News, of course they're gonna use that footage and bash him later, but they were gonna bash Bernie Sanders anyway on Fox News. It's not like that Fox News town hall gave them something to knock Bernie Sanders over. But if they knock Bernie 1,000 times on that show on that network, but that time Bernie had on there gave off positive views of his policies, then minus that from the 1,000 times they attack him, and some positive stuff broke through to that audience at some point during the broadcast. Like,
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think there can be ideological ground to be gained by going on Fox. For me, I don't think I would go on Fox personally, but that's more of a like I don't want to be part of their advertising scheme. Because if you are on the left and you go on Fox, then Fox takes that to advertisers and says, see, we are a fair and balanced network. We have people from all sides. And it's kind of like I guess the same way like vegans don't like to eat meat, right? They don't want to like there's the I don't want to eat animal thing, but then it's also the like I don't want to be a part of this industry type situation. It's kind of that same idea, I think.
My view on this has changed. I completely support any organization or any group that is doing the work to get to help make it hard for Fox to have advertisers. But I mean, this is my view. It's evolved. We've been playing the left has been playing this game for how many years now, and it's the strategy needs to change up because Fox clearly has the money to. I mean, Rupert Murdoch is not dying for cash. Fox News is doing just fine, and these boycotts have been going on for, I mean, how many years? I mean, we're I think we're approaching a decade now. I mean, the strategy, that stuff needs to continue happening. But I think the strategy needs to be switched up a little bit, and that's why I think it's fine for someone on the left to go on Fox News if they're actually going to go on to break through the usual crap that's on Fox News.
Right. And I'm sympathetic to it. Personally, I don't think I would do it, but there's also the question of like what point in time are we at right now? Like, is it more important to try to break through to people right now during an election year than it is other years? There's a lot of, like you said, valid points for sort of both positions there.
Well, AOC actually went on Fox News today to talk the coronavirus because and
I haven't got a chance to watch that, but I did see her tweet something about that.
Yeah, and I mean her explanation is sort of how I feel. I mean, she said she wouldn't have gone on otherwise, but the situation means that gave her an opportunity to break through to the audience, talk about coronavirus and how serious it is and what could be done to help people while this, I believe it's now officially a pandemic, is spreading. Mm-hmm. And I just think that's the idea. But I don't mean to turn this into a Fox News debate. Let's get back to CPAC.
Oh, right. CPAC.
So the socialism addiction over at CPAC is in full effect still. Charlie Kirk is obviously totally in tune with his fears are well founded because both parties are about to get rolled, I think, in the coming generation. I mean, you give it 10 years and you're going to have a completely different electorate. And it's going to be, I mean, right now we're looking at who's going with Bernie, and we're seeing it's a majority of people 40 and under. I mean, give it 10 years and that group is then 50 and under. And we're talking about an even smaller sliver of boomers and older Gen Xers who are making up this minority, it'll be, of people who don't think that Socialism is the answer to these issues that are affecting people, particularly young people. And I think the parties are going to face a reckoning when that happens. Truthfully, I really do think there's going to be a reckoning for both parties to face.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, even at CPAC, these younger, God, I feel old calling them kids, but they're like, freshmen, sophomores in college, maybe seniors in high school coming with their schools to CPAC, in some sponsored trip to go get plugged into the conservative movement with their Young Republicans Club or whatever. And even between like them and the adults in the room, the disconnect is just miles away. These younger kids are like all in on the like Pepe memes and like weird sort of like fringier far right stuff, the kind of stuff that has really kind of nestled itself into YouTube and some different like streaming cultures. It's just a different style, different culture, and then the asks are different.
Right.
And yeah, I agree. I was also thinking that sort of this year, which is that like Matt Schlapp and the guys running this conference have no idea what's coming up ahead of them.
Right. So what else happened at CPAC this year? We're probably going to end up swinging back around to coronavirus because there's a few more questions I want to ask you about it. But let's cover what else happened at CPAC. Let's not make coronavirus everything. So we got the socialism aspect, in which the show seems to revolve around now. What were the other big takeaways from CPAC 2020?
This isn't so much a takeaway as just sort of something I thought was interesting. I feel like I watched Jacob Wool and Jack Berkman's stunt just like die. I would kind of be surprised if they keep doing it after their CPAC stunt.
What did they do at CPAC?
So exactly, you didn't hear about it, did you?
I did not. There you go.
So Jacob Wool, Jack Berkman, since like the days of the Mueller investigation starting up, have been doing these periodic press conferences where they show up and they have these crazy claims. It'll be like Rob Mueller sexually assaulted a woman, or one of the funnier ones was that Elizabeth Warren was a cougar and was sleeping with this like hot, muscled up young guy.
Which we all know based on the primary results is that this did her in.
Right. The Jacob Wool took out Elizabeth Warren. That's crazy, but so yeah, they always show up. They have these like crazy just like crazy made up shit, and they just hold these ludicrous press conferences that have attracted people like me and other reporters just to kind of and like at first it was covering them and debunking the claims because there was like a worry that they would catch on and be treated as legitimate. Journalists had to like debunk them to maintain some sort of semblance of information quality, order, or whatever. And very quickly they just turned into this sideshow circus that was just kind of like the greatest show in right-wing politics to go see. It's these people that cannot be embarrassed going and just making insane claims and presenting very serious. These have kind of been dying off. I think they did too many in rapid succession, and people started to lose interest. And also, they're all just so easy to debunk. You can do it sometimes while the press conference is happening if you've got your phone out. And they did one at CPAC that was about Roger Stone's trial, and it was just so empty. I mean, it wasn't even like a good fake claim. It was just like a lousy fake claim, and no one really cared, and they just kind of walked off like embarrassed, I think. And I don't think anybody wrote an article about it. I don't think most people even tweeted about it, except I tweeted about it to the extent of like a picture where it's like, all right, they're doing another press conference. I'll let you know if they say anything. And I don't know. I just don't know if they're going to do it again, especially if like Jacob Wool actually gets pulled into court and things get real for him. I don't know. I kind of feel like I watched that whole saga die.
Now they weren't official guests, right? Like they just paid to go in, right?
Oh yeah, no, they they don't even go into CPAC.
Oh, this was
last year. They got kicked out of the resort convention center.
I remember now. Okay,
but Yeah, they just like walk into the lobby and there's this little pavilion that overlooks kind of the lower lobby. And they just go up there and they talk for like 15 minutes and then they leave.
Right, right. I should give a full disclosure because it's now becoming a topic in the chat room. My cough. uh, if anyone's been watching my streams for the past like month, you would know that I've had this cough that I can't shake. I went to the doctor the other day to be safe. I do not have coronavirus, as far as I know, at least. But I don't have a fever. I don't have any symptoms of that. I don't have a cold, a flu. I literally just have this cough, which the doctor thinks is allergy related. So I'm now on allergy related medication, and I will continue to cough until I guess I'm through that. I'm fine, people. Now let's get back to this wonderful conversation.
This segment brought to you by WebMD.
Right, there you go. There you go. I also have a really, like, what doesn't help my cough at all is all of a sudden I have, like, this bad nasal drip. I'm getting really personal here now. Maybe too much information, right? I get this bad nasal drip. So it's totally, like, tickling the back of my throat. It makes me cough even more. So that's it, everybody. Okay, so we got Jacob Wall and his buddy doing their usual shtick at CPAC, which seems to be fading, which doesn't seem to be fading. It is most definitely fading. Now, how did Trump's speech go over at CPAC?
Oh, they love the guy.
Well,
I mean, can't get enough. It's like ice cream, man. It's like it's everybody loves it.
What
But
did he say?
this
What did he say? Give me some deets. I mean, I know what he said, but for my audience, give me some deets as the guy who's there.
It was just kind of hard to follow this year, honestly. Like he just kind of started, and it's like we love it, we love everything, we're doing so great, everything is awesome. Socialism bad, conservatism good, and just total rambling nonsense. I ended up just like kind of dipping out a few minutes ahead of time just to like get away from everything and like try to have a normal Saturday. But uh, yeah, just like totally incoherent. Was there something in the speech that you thought particularly?
Is that where he did the Michael Bloomberg thing?
Oh yeah, Mini Mike.
And he did the thing where he ducked down at the oh my god, I'm having a mental block.
Podium.
The podium, thank you.
Yeah, he crashed down at the podium and stuck his head over and was like, "Oh, I'm Mini Mike Bloomberg," which that's funny. I don't know.
I mean, honestly, I remember when he was running for president. Hate the guy. Did everything possible to make sure he did not win. But when he would go on stage at the Republican debates and trash Jeb Bush and his entire family for things like the Iraq War, I mean, you couldn't help but be happy that this family was finally getting called out on national television for their horribleness, even though the guy doing it was horrible too. So I felt that way about the Michael Bloomberg thing. Michael Bloomberg, terrible guy. Donald Trump, terrible guy. To see one of them knock the other so hard, and also in a very funny manner, I'm here for it.
Yeah. I always tell people that Trump like would not be as bad if he wasn't the president. Like, I don't know. And also, if two billionaires want to like argue with each other and take shots at each other, who am I to deny them such pleasures?
Right. I mean,
yeah. So we got a little bit of that, but it's kind of interesting. We started this talking about coronavirus, and the whole theme of CPAC this year was America versus socialism. But as coronavirus creeps in, now these same conservatives, are kind of asking questions like they're so close to getting it on the socialism part. I feel like they're like, I don't understand why would people have to pay thousands of dollars to get tested for COVID-19?
Right.
I don't understand why don't we have these tests available? Oh, well, what's going to happen to people who don't have paid sick leave for their jobs? Like, I feel it's just like they're so close, man. They're so close. But instead, like any sort of prescription to these issues, they've been taught at places like CPAC are bad socialism, and we can't have them, and nothing can ever get better. In fact, we should have less health care for everybody.
Right. I mean, Ben Shapiro just tweeted earlier today. Where is it? Everyone was screenshotting the tweet to own him pretty much. Oh god, I can't find it now. Of course, I had it up 2 seconds ago. He said something to the effect of, "What's going on with these tests? Where are they? What's happening here?" And it's like, "Hey, buddy, why do you think other countries have these testing capabilities already, and we don't? I mean, come on."
Well, I mean, it's just a strain on the American infrastructure, and I think it's exposing itself for how uh, unfair and that just inept it is at delivering mass care across the country in times of crisis. So it's like all the arguments are being laid out just by like one situation on why we should maybe rethink how we have this all set up. But instead, like the Democrats are just pushing Joe Biden, I guess, is what their guy is going to be. The guy who doesn't want anything to change.
Right. I mean, it'd be interesting to see how different this primary would have played out if coronavirus came here about a month and a half ago.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see what, if anything, was different.
Right. Now, back on the topic of coronavirus. So we have Ted Cruz in his self-quarantine. Did anyone else from CPAC quarantine themselves?
I believe Mark Meadows might have quarantined
Oh, right.
himself.
But then 2 days after he said that, he was photographed in the Oval Office sitting next to Trump.
Awesome.
So
Matt Gaetz quarantined.
right after he was also
Took a trip on Air Force One.
mocking it and mocking the idea that the coronavirus was something to be taken seriously.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so insane to me. I mean, I feel like nowadays we're just in the phase of politics where like the mask is just melting off, and like everything is just so naked at this point. You have people like Matt Gaetz who are just making a mockery of this whole situation, and then like the second it touches anything close in their orbit, now it's like very serious and we're taking this seriously and we're quarantining as not to spread the thing. And it's just that the what's it called, the dissonance between those two things is outstanding.
Right. I mean, this is something that I live in. Everyone who listens to this podcast knows. 'Cause I talk about it. I've mentioned it on Twitter. I live in Queens, in New York City, specifically the Flushing area, and
Best borough.
It's the best borough, absolutely. And there's a large Asian population in this area. It's actually the Asian demographic is actually the majority in my neighborhood, and it's home to Main Street Flushing, which is basically the new Chinatown in New York City. It's more Chinatown than Chinatown in Manhattan, which obviously, due to rising prices in Manhattan, all those, like Little Italy and Chinatown have been getting sort of decimated in that borough. But that's another story that's a totally different topic. So I've been actually seeing the effects of this coronavirus for months now, because basically this Main Street Flushing, busy place in Queens, has been a lot less busy. Restaurants and small businesses here have been saying they've been feeling the effects. And if you look for stories online of racism over the coronavirus in New York, I can tell you that a large amount of that has been on public transportation headed to this neighborhood, or in this neighborhood itself, or people who were coming from this neighborhood. So, there's been a real, in this, and I tweeted out a picture yesterday, actually, where the urgent care that I went to for my cough the other day they actually had some posters up trying to sort of downplay the coronavirus, which actually some of the stuff they were saying was sort of not good in the opposite way, but like sort of showing that, like, before it became the pandemic it is now, people here in these areas of New York City or across the country where is a significant Asian population have been dealing with the racism from this, and we are now seeing this more so than ever from the Republican Party. I mean, they're literally calling it the Wuhan virus. They're calling it the Chinese virus. They're blaming China for it. I mean, it's not stunning that they're being xenophobic, but I mean, I can't think of something that would be that could be less helpful.
Right, right. And it's xenophobic. That's like the most obvious tone, but there's also sort of a subtone happening here where Republicans are really taking it upon themselves to try to use this virus to deepen animosity towards China. That it's a big agenda item for the Trump administration. It's like something Steve Bannon has been very intense about from day one. So, it's xenophobic primarily, but there's also kind of a subtext happening too, where, as much as these same politicians want to accuse the Democrats of trying to politicize this pandemic, they're also trying to politicize it in a way to like build up resentment towards China and then therefore justify any sort of future tariffs or trade war type things.
Right, but and I know you get this, but just for people who are listening and watching, you see that when the Republicans are out there using that rhetoric with maybe their Chinese relations and trade deals and foreign policy in mind, the Republican base, they're not involved with those conversations, so they don't get to take out their aggravation over this with the Chinese government. They take out that aggravation over this with Chinese immigrants and even people who aren't Chinese immigrants. I mean, you're seeing racism here for anyone who they deem to be Asian, regardless of whether they're even from China to begin with, which is wrong. I'm not saying that makes it right, obviously, but I mean, you're seeing just like after 9/11, how one of the first hate crimes in the United States that resulted in a death was a Sikh man being shot at a 7-Eleven. You're seeing, you're going to see, and you're seeing now, racism against Chinese, Korean, Japanese, anyone who looks like whatever a Republican views as a stereotypical Asian person.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's, even though these politicians might be doing it for their own ends and for their own reasons or whatever, the byproduct is, toxic and often dangerous to these communities.
So, Jared, thank you for joining me on this show on a crazy day where coronavirus is just completely taking over the news cycle, and I mean rightfully so. What else can possibly be talked about right now?
Yeah. I keep telling people it's the only thing happening right now.
I also appreciate you breaking down the big stories from CPAC. I mean, CPAC was only about a week and a half ago, and now I feel like it feels like it
crazy,
was
man.
a lifetime away.
It feels like it was forever ago, and there was even just like weird little things that happened at that conference that I just, because of everything that's happened since, just don't seem important anymore. It's just it's crazy, man. It's I'm hoping things get back to normal someday.
Now, do you want to stick around for a bit? Maybe you could talk more on the patron-only portion of the show about those little things, and we'll take some questions from the YouTube live stream audience as well.
Sure. Yeah, I can stick around for a little bit.
Cool. So, folks, Jared, I'm gonna put you on mute for a second just to throw in some plugs. You can go grab a glass of water, go use the restroom, whatever you need to do. And then you'll be back up in a minute.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. So, folks, Jared's going to join us for the patron-only portion of the show. If you're watching on the live stream, whether that's on YouTube, Periscope, Twitch, or Facebook Live, You can stick around, and you'll also get to see that live stream show. But if you're catching the podcast or the replay, and you're not watching this live, you need to become a patron to get that part of the show. Go to patreon.com/mattbinder, and you could support this show. All I ask for is $5 a month. Now, I know all the craziness going around now with coronavirus. If you were someone who is worried your job will be affected by this, I do what you need to do financially. There's other ways you can support this show. But if you're someone who's able to work from home, or your job is not gonna be affected by this, you can, you're just weathering the storm here. Patreon.com/mattbinder. It's greatly appreciated. And the people who make this show possible via Patreon is Abigail T, Adam Q, Alan B, Amanda H, Andrew C, Andrew H, Angela, Ari R, Baka, Ben, Benji, Bobby M, Brosnan, Champagne Kame, Chris, Christine, Colin, Connor, Cracker Barrel, Cynthia, Dan K, Dan M, Dank Uger, Dave, David Z, Daya, Doug, H, Dragon Slayer, Eugene, Fraz, FTW All Day, Greywind, Greg, Grim, Hitesh, Igor, Jack, Jameson Test, Janelle, Jasmine, Jeremy, John B, I should say, John S, Jonathan B, Jonathan L, Joseph H, Joseph R, Joyce M, Justin S, Katie S, list is getting long, Kaushal, Lance, Lisa D, MC, Mariah, Mark S, Matt Z, Max W, me, Melissa M, Mitch, Michael B, Michael J, Michael M, Mr. Danks, Nicole, Namde Net, Null Style, Odeth, Paul M, Penelope D, Qster, Rad Dad Redemption, Remy, Ryan, Scott, Seth, Sean, Snazzles, Stephen R, Stephen S, and Steve A, Struggle Session, TM, Tammy G, Terrence, Hypervisor, This Is Not Pizza, Tina, Todd, Tom, Vance, Why That Tie Guy, Utopian, and Zoe G. Doomedpod.com for the podcast version of the show. Leave a review on iTunes. Haven't had an iTunes review in a while. And it's because I haven't really been focusing on that. Been focusing a lot on getting people to like the YouTube channel. But if you get a chance, go to iTunes, type in Doomed, leave us an iTunes review. It helps people find the show. YouTube.com/MattBinder. Subscribe now. Twitch.tv/MattBinder. Actually just got an email inviting me to join the Twitch affiliate program. I have to look into that. That means possibly big things happening on Twitch for this show. If I could get my act together and start being more Twitch interactive, I'll do it. What else? Folks, tell people about this show. Tell your favorite podcasters or YouTubers you want to see me on their show, if that's what you'd like, obviously. Tell them you'd like to see them on this show. I would love to have them. Other than that, Jared Holt's going to join us on the patron half right now. Otherwise, also, if you're on the live stream, drop your questions, and also you can do a super chat. I already see we have a super chat or two. I'll be reading that right off the bat in the second half of the show. Otherwise, that's that for the freebies. See you all next time on Doomed. All right. We are back on Doomed. This is the patron only half of the show. And joining me, sticking around from the first half of the show, is Jared Holt of Right Wing Watch. Jared, thank you for joining me on the second half of the show.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be with you on this premium half of the show.
That's what this is, absolutely. And we already got questions. Usually I would go through, I go through all the chat and take it from everybody, but I only asked questions for Jared up at the very end there, so we're just gonna take it from there. So we have the Jared specific questions, and here's a good one. Jared, this comes from Cena on YouTube. Jared, are you afraid of the right wing lunatics at CPAC? I guess sort of a question about your well being when you go to these sort of events.
Uh, I worry if they have coronavirus, I guess. I cover a lot of different right-wing events. Some of them are street brawls. Some of them are things like CPAC, and CPAC is on the extremely safe, uh, side of the spectrum. There's security everywhere. Most people are not there to really get into trouble. They're just there with whatever Republican group or, local county GOP sent them there. Most people are not there to cause trouble. I mean, people will say nasty things to me. They don't like me very much, or uh, some people will, flip out a phone and try to do a gotcha or something, but that never really makes me fear for my safety. And, frankly, I'm honored to be considered such a boogeyman that, the other stuff happens too.
I think people need to understand that, like, because when I went to CPAC as well, like, CPAC wants us there. It's like
Oh yeah,
they give
yeah.
you a press pass. Like, Jared's not paying to go to CPAC. I mean, obviously, you pay for the travel there, but you're already in the area because that's
Hmm.
where you're from. Um, but I mean, Jared's not paying for admission or registration. Jared's got a press pass.
Right. If you have a sizable audience, I mean, CPAC will like credential anyone with a decent audience, really, as long as you can like follow the rules, and the rules are basically like don't punch Sebastian Gorka in the face. Like as long as you are like good with that, um, and you're not like bothering people, yeah, they'll let you in and cover it. They want to be the center of attention.
The interesting thing is, um, that rule would be easy to follow for a lot of people, but the Sebastian Gorka one they had to make specifically because they knew it'd be hard for people to not punch Mr. Gorka. But so let's actually before we go to more questions, you had mentioned there were some little things that CPAC that stuck with you, but seem minor now in retrospect because of everything going on. But I'm gonna bring up one or two of these things that like were on your mind at CPAC that you were sort of like, oh, this is interesting.
Yeah, sure. One thing I thought was interesting, and I am like super into tech stuff, especially how tech and government intersect. So this was like candy for me. But um, when it comes down to it, Republicans are really split on how they view the role of government with technology. There's the Donald Trump Juniors and Diamond and Silks of the world saying, Facebook and Twitter have shadow banned conservatives and we need the government to regulate or whatever. And then you have the like conservative policy wonk type people, which are like, okay, listen, we don't always like the way they moderate, but is government really the answer here? We don't want something like China, which is like kind of my position where I'm like, yeah, okay, like I get it. You're not happy. I'm not happy, but like, do we want like the government deciding what is true or not? I don't know. Probably not. Um, and to see that split, there was one panel I went to specifically, which was all about like social media censorship or whatever. And uh, one panelist had the nerve to make that point exactly, which is, maybe we shouldn't, we don't like the companies, but maybe bringing the government in isn't the right idea. And the crowd was just like erupted into people being like, "What? Boo! Fuck you, man!" It was so crazy to see that happen at a conservative conference for such a mundane statement. So
That's
I
actually a
get,
conversation that happens on the left, though.
yeah, yeah,
I'm not, Alex Jones, when he got banned from YouTube, protesting that wasn't a hill I was going to die on. And I don't really care about Alex Jones. So I didn't, he got banned, boo hoo for him. But at the same time, you know, I also, it's a worrisome thing that these platforms have so much power where they could basically deplatform someone completely, and this person lose again. I don't care about Alex Jones specifically, but any one of us could lose our ability to reach out to our audience if Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, or any of these companies just decide we don't want this person on our platform. And in the same sense, having the government get involved, if your guy's not running the government, then you're not going to probably like how this is being enforced.
right, yeah, exactly. It's and especially at a conservative conference, like that is the more like libertarian position to take, which is the like we don't want the government to decide social media stuff, social media guidelines. Um, but to see that get booed at CPAC was a little bit mind warping. I guess I hadn't realized that that division was really there. It seems like the policy people in places like the Heritage Foundation and whatever, like the people that actually write the stuff, and give it to Congress and not just the people who go on TV. It seems like between them and like all the MAGA media personalities, there's this very deep divide where they just like do not agree. But I guess it's making all of them enough money that they just don't duke it out in public. But yeah, that was pretty. That stuck with me coming away from the conference for sure.
A funny thing I saw when I brought up the AOC going on Fox News to talk about coronavirus earlier in the first half of the show. When she went on there to talk with Brett Baer, and Brett Baer tweeted about it to promote it. And if you look at the replies, it's just a ton of people screaming out at Brett Baer saying, "I'm not going to watch this. How can you have her on?" And it's just funny to see this. I mean, this is supposed to be the network that's fair and balanced.
Right.
Why shouldn't they have the other side on? Honestly, I see the same thing in like Rachel Maddow or Chris Hayes' mentions when they announce that they're having Bernie Sanders on the show, and you see the brainwormed people on the Democratic side going, "Oh, I'm not gonna watch. I'm changing the channel." It's like, but it's still like these are supposed to be news organizations. They're supposed to talk to multiple people of multiple different ideological bents, multiple different sides, multiple different opinions. To just say you're not going to listen, I mean that really shows just the dangerous territory we're in now, where people are not only in a bubble now because they don't realize it. Like, you watch one channel and you just think you're getting the news as is without realizing. We're now in territory, and this is certainly not a recent phenomena. This has been over years now, but we're in territory now where people want to be in the bubble. It's not that they're just watching Fox News and they go, "Oh, this is just the world as it is." They're watching Fox News and they're saying, "I know this isn't what the whole world thinks, but this is what I want to believe the whole world thinks."
Right. Yeah. And I think that phenomena is a whole lot less partisan than at least the right wing wants to pretend that it is. The Brett Baer example is perfect. These conversations about platforming and whatnot are also happening on the right too. I just personally happen to like the left's policy subscription to it or prescription to it a little bit better.
Right.
But that's my personal take.
Right. Let's go to another question here. Here's a good one. This is from Grim on YouTube. What's going on with the Adamhoffen base arrest, Jared?
Can you say that again? You kind of broke up for a second.
What's going on with the Atomwaffen base arrests, Jared?
As far as I know, these people are being arraigned. We'll get, court dates soon. But as far as I know, there's a lot of these cases, but I believe that most of them are pending trial right now.
Right, and we're gonna I'll do a show on that one too. I haven't really covered that. I've been in like full blown primary mode because, I mean, the primaries were going on in full swing, and I think it's actually like, I would talk about it regardless because I'm a leftist, but for a show that usually talks about, the right and the conservative movement and conspiracy theories among those groups, I mean, it's important, I think, to talk about the Democratic primaries because literally we need to figure out who is the best to take on that stuff. And I mean, the Democratic primaries take a huge part in that. And unfortunately, I mean, my personal opinion is that it's not going the way that it should for those people to be truly defeated. Hopefully they are regardless, but that's why I've been literally the past like 10 shows have been all about the Democratic primary on Doomed.
Mm. Yeah. And in February I went on vacation and then I came back and went to CPAC and then the coronavirus stuff happened. So I have also been a little bit out of the pocket. A great person to check their timeline or the website First Vigil is Emily Korsensky. She keeps tabs on these cases in a very methodical and like easy to read way. I would check her Twitter feed and her website for this sort of latest like day-to-day stuff happening.
Right. So this one comes from Dorian, also on YouTube. Question for Jared. Did the person who brought coronavirus to CPAC do it on purpose?
No, that the person who brought it to CPAC did not know that they had it when they went.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong.
So it was not an Antifa super soldier for all of us wondering.
Right. The person also has a follow-up question that says, even if they did not bring it on purpose, are they still a hero? We don't have to answer that. But
I will decline.
Yeah.
It's a funny question, though.
Right. It's a very funny question, and I think they know the answer. But my question is, now I know you. I believe you mentioned it on the first half, like right up front. You spoke about it. We know who this person is now. It's a doctor in New York, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And we know they figured out it was this person because someone backtracked from Ted Cruz, who could Ted Cruz have possibly met, that also met these other people who were going into quarantine, and someone came up with, oh, look, this doctor is quarantining themselves in Manhattan, and they have a history of being a Ted Cruz donor, so it makes sense. Is it confirmed that this person is who it is? Who's the patient zero at CPAC?
I haven't independently confirmed it, but days ago, that was the name that was floated by me. I just didn't pursue it to report out because, if I publish something like the Washington Examiner posted today, Washington Examiner being a conservative publication, if I had published this person's name, I'd be getting called a doxer.
Oh, right.
So that's also kind of, he's a private person. He's a rich doctor, but like, I don't think he meant to do it. And I couldn't really, I found myself having to stretch to make the argument for like why it was important for the public to know exactly who this person was. So I just ended up not pursuing that story, but that is the name that I heard days ago. When someone was talking to me about it.
Now, it's not really important for the public to know this person's name. I guess, unless someone of a medical background would like to refute that, which I would obviously listen to. But it seems like it's something that people like yourself who attended CPAC, that seems like information you guys should be privy to based on the fact that you could have possibly interacted with this person.
Right. Right. And CPAC's approach so far has just been the people that they know of that interact with this person, they were told first, but the general uh, the participants of CPAC haven't been told in mass, but there's also like 10,000 of them. And if you tell 10,000 people something, there's no way that's going to stay secret.
Right, but I mean, at least it would come out via an appropriate way instead of people like
Oh,
backtracking and digging into this
yeah,
person's.
I agree. It would have been better to come from them.
Right. Let's see. Let's see what else. What else we got here? Um. All right, we got Jared. This comes from Cena. Jared and Matt. Who's your favorite grifter on the right? Would you like to start, Jared?
Oh, favorite grifter. I think I need a second to think about that.
I mean, I got a lot of faves. So I'm gonna name two that aren't like in any particular order, and it's not definitive. There are many others, but two I would say. Number one is Mike Cernovich for the sheer hilarity and constant evolution from him that keeps the hilariousness coming. The dude has had more right wing grifts than I think anyone in the history of right wing grifts. It's just a constantly evolving scheme of right wing grifts, from a muscle dude to a gamer defender to a pickup artist to a hardcore Trump guy to an anti-Trump guy to a straight up fascist, to all of a sudden I'm a more respectable right winger who's disgusted by that stuff. From his current shtick is pro Chelsea Manning. It's amazing to watch the evolution of Mike Cernovich. He just keeps the hits coming.
I think mine, now that I've had a second to think about it, um, I don't know why it took me so long. There's really no competition. It's Diamond and Silk. Hands down, the best grifters. And I say that strictly from a theatrical and like showmanship standpoint. There is no live performance that I've seen at any conservative conference
Right.
that that I've seen from Diamond and Silk at any event I see them at. They just bring the place to the fucking ground. They just burn that place down. And you've got like 60-year-old dying, well, 60's not dying, but like old dying white people, boomers in the Conservative Party, sitting there in the crowd being like, "Oh, preach it, sister." And it's like you're on a fucking your body, your soul just like levitates out of the back of your body for a few inches and rests there the whole time they're on stage.
I mean, it's a really smart grift. I mean, as they're two black women who saw an opening for Trump to have a physical manifestation of his black support, and which is very low, but there is no grifters, I think, who get promoted by the president more. So I think that is a great favorite to have, Jared.
Hands down, man. Hands down. They're the best.
I said I had two I wanted to mention specifically. So my second one, and again, in no particular order, and I think if we're going to put them in order, I think Diamond and Silk might be at the top, just from sheer success of the grift. Tim Pool.
Oh yeah.
What a successful
crowd favorite
grift that is. The idea that you would espouse Republican talking points, that you would constantly grow this Republican right-wing, I'm not going to say Republican, right-wing fan base, do videos your whole career basically, since you started doing videos on your own, is shitting on the left and the Democrats and progressives, if not outright going bat for the right, now hawking prepper products and food stockpiles from Alex Jones-esque companies.
It's the same company.
It's the same company. There you go.
Yeah.
While still maintaining, till I guess your last, to your dying breath, that you're in fact a neutral person in this, and you just look at things straight down the line.
Not only that, but that he's a journalist.
Right. Right.
You want to tell me what scoop Tim Pool's got? He's just like one of a million other like dumb video guys on YouTube. It just like people who like showed up somewhere with a camera and live streamed it and was like, I'm a journalist now, which like that is a form of journalism, but like to be reporting something, like there's also a little bit more that goes into the equation. There's like an ethical thing,
right,
where it's like one of the rules of journalism is if you're going to mention somebody in a story, you reach out to them and give them a chance to comment and weigh in. And Tim Pool's made a few videos about me now, and he's never contacted me about it. So that would be like, you know, and if he had, I could have stopped him from like embarrassing himself by getting so much shit wrong.
I mean, for someone who cares so much about his YouTube channel, you would think that a really successful video that he could monetize and build his YouTube money off of would be to invite you on to discuss whatever article or reporting you did. I could think of many reasons why he hasn't done that, because the negatives for him would far outweigh whatever view count he would get, because clearly you would ruin his made up reality with what you're actually reporting. But you would think if he cared about that, he would reach out to you in a second and have that, try to make that happen at the very least.
You would think, man. But yeah, man, and I don't even think he believes the shit he says, man. That's like what's most infuriating to me is the grifters who are just saying shit to say shit. And they don't really care what the consequences are. They don't care what happens, really. They just know if they say something a certain way and they use certain words, that their view count goes up and they get money and their Patreon's full, and that's like that's it. That I really have like no respect for people like that.
Right. Well, I mean, I remember, you know, I had both myself and Sam Cedar, when I was on the Majority Report, had reached out to Tim Pool back in 2011 when he was building a name for himself as the pretty much 24/7 Occupy Wall Street live streamer. It's where he built his name. And this is a guy who seemed like, at the very least, was a sympathetic to the cause citizen journalist. I don't think I was taken by any grift, because this was just a completely different person. This isn't like a grifter who pulled the wool over your eyes or whatever, the sheet,
right,
whatever.
Right.
This is
a totally different era of Tim Pool's career.
Right. This is just someone who was a completely different person, who wasn't even running a grift, who wasn't a right winger at the time, who at some point realized that he could make more money and have a better play by becoming a right wing grifter. So it is interesting to see just how quick some of these people flip that switch and make that jump.
Here, I can take maybe one or two more questions, and then I got to jump off here.
Sure, no problem. Let's see. YouTube is not the best way to take these questions. Let's see. Here we go. Question. I guess this is related to coronavirus. This comes from Patrick. Do you think you can have it and don't know it?
Yeah, you can be asymptomatic for, I think it's 5 days. I don't know. I do know it is possible to carry it without showing symptoms, but you should really consult medical professionals instead of me.
Yes, this is not when Jared asked for questions, he meant related to his beat, or at the very least, funny offbeat questions, not medical advice on a pandemic. But here we go. The final question for Jared from BA on YouTube. Did Diamond and Silk begin as a joke and just end up making money so they became a Republican?
That's a good question. And sometimes I wonder if it's still a joke. If you watch their videos, it doesn't seem that despite all their money and success that they've really like upgraded anything. Most people, if you support them on YouTube and they start getting successful, maybe they like get a new camera or they upgrade the microphone or like, they do stuff to put out a better product. But instead, you still have like Diamond and Silk like putting on the webcam and just like doing their thing. And that that almost makes me think like they're kind of phoning it in. I really don't know. I mean, I would love to just sit down with them and see if I could get them to just be like 100% honest with me. But I don't know. Watching it, at least from people who are like-minded to you and I'm at it, it's very hard to watch and think like, oh, this is serious. This is
Right.
like it does seem almost kind of beyond parody.
Now, I have a quick follow-up for you based on that question. In the same vein of Diamond and Silk being so ridiculous that it seems like it's parody, what is your take on those? I don't remember exactly what the name of their big song was. I'm going to call them the Trump Train Girls. You know who I'm talking about.
Deplorable choir.
There you go. Those three white girls who put out the videos singing like pro-Trump themed music. Now
Trump train moving ahead.
there you
Full
go.
speed.
That's why I called them the Trump
Man.
Train Girls. Yep. Now they seem like they also fall under that umbrella. What's your take on them?
Pure grifters, man. Pure grifters. I don't even know if they like Trump that much, to be honest.
Really? So you think Diamond and Silk have more of a chance of being true Trump fans than those three white girls?
I think so, because I actually did talk to the Deplorable Choir one time at
You did?
an event last year in DC.
Do you have a second to divulge a little bit of that?
Sure. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot to it, but I did know for that event, they had flown to DC and they weren't getting paid to do the event, which strikes me as somebody who is trying very hard to be famous or trying very hard to be recognized or something. Like, these are people who, at that time, at the very least, appear to have footed their own bill to perform somewhere where they don't live. And this wasn't like a charity event or anything. So that is always like a red flag in my head as far as grifting goes. It's like, oh, this person's like, is looking at this as an investment. So like they're trying to go somewhere. This isn't like about ideology really. This is a product now.
Right. Right. That's certainly very interesting because they seem like they actually, from the outside looking in, without talking with them and having that background that you had, from the outside in, I would say they look like they're like completely they've drank the Kool-Aid.
I mean, maybe they have drank the Kool-Aid at this point, but at least, this was probably a year ago, if not a little bit more, that I talked to them. A lot can change.
Right. So, Jared, thank you for joining me on the second half of the show as well.
Always, man.
How long do you we don't know now, right? I think you said we're not sure how long you have to stay in quarantine, right?
Yeah, it's work from home indefinitely. I still have my fingers crossed for this Kill Switch Engage concert on Saturday.
Are you allowed? Are you allowed to go though, as someone who went to CPAC?
Oh yeah, I didn't have contact with this person. I've had no symptoms, and tomorrow is going to mark 14 days, I think. So
There you go.
that's supposed to be the max amount of time. But I'm kind of the way it looks in this area, like DC's a state of emergency and stuff. Like I'm thinking this concert's probably not going to happen. I'm just hoping I can get outside and do something this weekend.
Right. I mean, every place is right now. I mean, it's crazy. I just can't put it together how quickly this all happened. Like, this is just how fast
Yeah,
this went down.
and I always tell people with stuff like this, this is what I tell people when they come to me after being like harassed online or something, and they're just want some advice on how to deal with it. Uh, you want to be prepared for stuff, right? Like maybe this is a good time to like fill out your pantry a little bit, get some pasta, get some sauce. I don't fucking know, whatever you want to eat. Um, and maybe just make sure you have like decent medical supplies or something, but don't be paranoid. You don't have to be
Right.
buying the buckets of food or like pallets of water. This is be ready, be prepared, but like don't go nuts.
Right. And if you are going to go that route, allow me to tell you all to go to Matt Binder's prepperstore.net web and please buy from my affiliate link the bucket of meat and the dried fruits that have been injected with the coronavirus antidote. That's what I'm telling you.
Listen, y'all are good. Fuck Matt Supply. You need to go to Soy Boy Supplies Industries. We've got all your vegan prepper materials. We've got beef jerky made of tamarind. We have. I don't know, man.
Did
I
you
don't know.
did you see that the
I thought that bit would go longer than it did, but
did you see that the New York AG is warning Alex Jones that if he doesn't stop selling or at least marketing his toothpaste as coronavirus curing toothpaste, they're gonna take him to court?
oh, I saw that, man. Jim Baker's been doing the same thing. Jim Baker just got sued by the state of Missouri, so I wonder if we're gonna see the state of Texas kind of step in and do something to Alex Jones too.
Oh, they're not with what's his face in charge.
Yeah, but yeah, certainly not Alex Jones's first legal woe, but
Right.
I'm sure it's not going to be his last either.
Right. All right, Jared. That's Jared Holt at Right Wing Watch. Thank you so much for joining me tonight, Jared. Stay safe, stay healthy.
Always a pleasure.
Take care.
Bye.
All right, folks. Let me make sure I read the super chats. I would have read the super chats if they were a question up top with Jared on, but I don't have super chat questions. So it's we got 2 super chats from Renee tonight. Renee says, "Drink guarana dark gritty with Tylenol." What's guarana? And Renee also says, "Like the conservatives that Hitler marked for death, but helped him get into power." I recommend, if you want your this is to everybody, not just Renee. Going forward, I think if you want your comment to be read on the show, definitely add the context, because by now I think regular listeners of the show know that I'm not going to be reading the chat stream as you guys are chatting, because I'm doing the interview, I'm talking about something else. So definitely try to add the context in your comment as to what that's related to. Wait, Grim, why did you say that Michael Brooks is going to become Tim Pool? Wait, Renee, you just said David Pakman is greater than Kyle Kulinski, who's greater than Michael Brooks? What? No. I'm sorry. If you like Kyle Kulinski better than Michael, that's fine. If you like Michael better than Kyle, that's fine. But I'm sorry, David Pakman is not better than either of them. David Pakman gets so much leftist analysis wrong, to be honest. I mean, maybe on like straightforward news hits, he's got the goods. But when it comes to leftist analysis, I gotta tell you, from my opinion, it's often lacking. Sean says, "Thanks, Matt, for having Jared on again. He's my favorite guest and one of my political therapists along with you." Oh, I thank you, Sean. That means a lot. Folks, don't let this stuff, like, what's going on right now is crazy. But don't let it, like, take over your life. Like, you're going to have to listen to this stuff if you but still step outside, get a fresh breath of fresh air. Do go out and grab something to eat if you want. Support these local businesses and eateries if they're open, but just take extra precautions. You want to use your hand sanitizer. You want to make sure you wash up. You know, let me tell you, I'm not the most. I'm not the best when it comes to this stuff, as my partner can tell you, who is like a germaphobe. She's a germaphobe, and I'm not. I can tell you right now, I understand why she is so against outside clothes being worn inside. It makes sense now. So just take these precautions. Have a pair of clothes you wear outside. When you come home, change into your inside clothes. That way you're not sitting on your couch in the jeans that you sat on the train or the bus or the subway with. And then once this is all said and done, like I probably will, you just go back to being a slob. But you want, like Jared said too, and this is what I tried to stress earlier on too when I saw the freakouts leading to the problems in my community with the xenophobia and just like the Asian-owned businesses being hurt here. We do not go crazy about it. We don't freak out. We just take the precautions. We do what the experts recommend, and we continue. Sucks that big events or stuff that maybe we were going to do are canceled. I'm sure a lot of them will be rescheduled. Just put normal everyday life on hold for a couple weeks. In terms of like just doing everything you usually do in your normal day. Continue doing the normal things that are allowed to be done. Like I said, grabbing a bite to eat. Instead of eating out, maybe bring it home. Still support these places. And I mean, it's so crazy how quickly this changed here, and how I went from doing 10 shows about the primaries to now we're talking about this, and it sucks even for the primaries. I mean, I know the primaries are in the state that it's in, but I mean, it would have been helpful for these primaries to continue with the campaign events and the rallies, but they've canceled those. It'll definitely be harder for these primaries to continue. I don't even know how they're going to vote on Tuesday. How the primaries aren't being pushed back till like May. I don't understand at all. But yeah. Don't let this stuff destroy your life. Keep yourself sane and take health precautions. Netflix is these sort of streaming services certainly very helpful. Honestly, what I'm worried about is the schools in New York City being canceled, because it is extremely helpful, I think, for my son to continue going to school and his life being normal that way. It's also helpful for him, for us, his parents, to stay sane. He's a great kid, but if he was home from school, we would take him out and do activities with him. Kids are going to get very restless stuck at home. Someone asked, BA asked, why is little Michael Brooksy getting grief? I don't know, actually. Why is he getting grief? That's what I asked as well. That is what I asked as well. Francis Zek followed up my prepper food service should be called Binder's Food Buckets, which BA followed up with. The better brand name for it would be Binder Buckets. And Dorian follows that up with a question about where they can buy nano silver. Oh, my dad in the chat pointing out how he had tickets to see Paul Rubens at the Beacon Theater for the 35th anniversary of Pee-wee's Big Adventure at the end of the month. And it looks like that's going to be canceled as well. Well, Dad. Oh, I should mention this too. My dad. I mentioned, if you listen to the show last year, he had a medical incident with his heart, and he had to go to the hospital. Unfortunately, last week he had another incident with his heart related that found him in the hospital. So my dad, who is recuperating, thankfully it looks like he's fine now. Everyone in the chat now should tell my dad, as someone who is not at 100%, is recuperating, and is also a boomer, and we all know the coronavirus hits boomers especially hard. Everyone in the chat right now should be telling my dad not to go out, not to be doing things like recklessly. He should be washing his hands, minimizing taking his walks. If he wants some fresh air, he can step outside and get fresh air. Everyone hound my dad right now to be taking this a little bit more seriously. Because apparently I'm reading articles about boomers who are the most susceptible to the coronavirus not taking this seriously. And I've seen the jokes about how, it's culling the boomers. And this is great news for Bernie Sanders. But there's good boomers out there. They're jokes. But in all seriousness, let's all take these precautions seriously without freaking out. Especially if you are a boomer who recently was in the hospital for something. Okay? Okay. All right, folks. That is... Umar says that Matt is talking like Biden. What? How am I talking like Biden? Oh, well, I want to also mention, I was doing the post-primary shows, live streams for every single primary. I did not do one this past Tuesday after Detroit. And part of the reason was that I was waiting to hear from all the candidates like I do last time around. And Bernie didn't come out Tuesday night to talk. And then I was considering still doing it. But there was just so much unanswered. And I felt like, people were just in such a confused state of what was going on that I felt like it would be best to just wait it out and get a better sense of where the primary was headed instead of speculating what really would end up being speculation that was relevant for no more than just a few hours. So I decided to just pause it on that and not do one that night. But unless things change with the scheduling of these events happening, I will still be doing a primary show after the debate, this coming debate, and I'll be doing a primary show for all the other primaries. I don't think there'll be another confusing night where we're not sure what's happening. I think we are now in a sense of where this primary is headed, unfortunately. But strange things could still happen. And I think Bernie Sanders made the right choice to stay in for numerous reasons. To push his agenda, to keep the Democratic base active in voting in the primary and not just have them sit around twiddling their thumbs till November. And because with everything that's happening, and I don't mean even a catastrophic thing with coronavirus. I mean literally with the state of the race and who are the two frontrunners are, literally anything could happen. A gaffe, a complete screw up. These current events could change people's opinions. And of course, yes, there's worst case scenarios. So he's smart for staying in. There needs to be, at the very least, a backup plan. But obviously the number one thing is to push the party left and obviously to still run for president because Bernie's not mathematically eliminated. It's going to be very hard, but there are scenarios where he could still do it. Um, Renee says Binder buckets would have a lot of cola. Francis says critical support for my dad. Misha says don't go out, Papa Binder. Don't go out, you boomer, says BA. Renee says wear a mecha suit. Cena says please don't go out and wash your hands to my dad. Grim says that my pops is our favorite boomer, so be safe. Chester says get well soon, Mr. Binder. Yes, I see the people who are saying Bernie's done. Bernie's officially surrendered. Has unofficially surrendered. Right. Listen, just see how it plays out. I see the reality of the situation. I mean, I just told you the main reasons he's still in. But the reality of the situation also has that very small percentage where anything can happen. It's not like an Elizabeth Warren or Michael Bloomberg where there's literally, mathematically, absolutely no scenario and no path. Silence Do Good on Periscope says Bernie is done. Bernie is not even part of the Dem Party. He's independent. He runs as under the Dem Party for president, so he doesn't split the vote and run third party. He caucuses with the Dems. He votes more progressive than the Dems. And he actually votes party line more than people who actually are Dems in Congress. So, I mean, come on. My dad says debate this Sunday. Bernie will tear Biden apart. Cena says, what are your thoughts on Elizabeth Warren? That's for another day. I think this show has pretty much got a theme going on. We'll talk about Elizabeth Warren another day. You could go back to the Super Tuesday night to see some of my feelings and emotions on Elizabeth Warren. That's the last primary show I did. Ian says, when I get coronavirus, I'm attending all the MAGA rallies I can. Oh. Renee says the response to coronavirus might change things. Perhaps, right? I mean, not likely, unfortunately, even though, I mean, you couldn't have seen a more stark difference between how much better Biden was in addressing the issue than Trump, and then how much even better Bernie was than Biden at addressing the issue than Trump. I mean, Bernie was out there discussing why we need Medicare for all right now, why we need paid sick leave right now, why child care is important, why we need a moratorium on evictions. He was just on point. I mean, it really goes to show his view of the scenario. I mean, Biden's speech was basically his worldview of Trump is the issue and he's got to go. Whereas Bernie's coronavirus speech was Trump is the symptom and the cause is what we're really feeling right now with what's going on with the coronavirus. And this is what we need to do to take care of that issue. And then when we do that, symptoms like Trump will also be defeated. Christian says coronavirus took a month too late, right? Renee says going against Medicare for all Biden. Okay, boomer. BA says Biden's just going to allow a competent Trump to come next. I mean, that's something we'll also talk more about, and that is my worry. But folks, that is our show. Francis X says, Biden said, wash your hands and don't be racist. Bernie talked about policy. Right. And those two things are obviously very serious and important to say. But you need to say it along with that other stuff, too, that Bernie said. Chester says, the framing the issues around COVID-19 is the best way to swing people back to Bernie. Yeah, it could be, but it might be unfortunately too late. But we'll have to wait and see. All right, folks. Cena says, "Love you, Matt." Oh, thank you, Cena. Appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in. All right, everybody. Take care. Stay healthy. Don't panic. Be smart. Take smart precautions. Don't go overboard. Try to live life as normal as you can while still taking those precautions. Wait, Renee said there's one last super chat. Renee says, not the time to be crusty, Dark Gritty. And that'll be our final chat of the day. See you all next time on Doomed.